What's up, everybody? Benoit Denis will be facing Dustin Poirier this weekend at UFC 299. Big matchup. There's no way that this fight can dissatisfy us hungry MMA fans. We're hungry. After the Jairzinho Rosenstrike and Shamil Gaziev card, not that that was a terrible card, but it did leave us a little bit wanting for more. And I think that our appetites are going to be satiated. And I think this fight, in particular for me, is the main course. Nothing against the O'Malley Vera fight, but this fight, this is the main course. Both these guys are absolute savages. And I don't just mean because they can fight really good. It's because of their grit. It's because of their heart. It's because of the mindset both of these guys have once they're in the octagon. Both of these guys are willing to die. It's kill or be killed once they get in there. Now, these guys are very different in their styles and their approach to how they win fights. But they're very similar in their mentalities and very similar in their tendencies outside of physical tendencies. We're talking habits inside the octagon, like IQ habits. They both are too willing to engage in brawls. They both get caught because of this willingness. However, it's that same mentality that often withers and crushes the souls of their opponents and ultimately leads them to getting many victories. I mean, it's worked for him a lot because there's a lot of times where Benoit is hurt. His opponent is getting the better of him. If you look at the Niklas Stoltz fight, there were moments in that fight where Stoltz, I hope I'm saying his last name right, where he was really putting it on Benoit Denis. But Benoit was able to grit through it and ultimately won the fight. Not just because of grit, but that was a large part of it. You got to be tough. And Benoit Denis is tough. Dustin Poirier is tough. Now that we've talked about how they're all too willing to engage in the fiery throes of battle, and sort of the detriments that can come with that, such as getting caught, which is the biggest thing. There's also some other weaknesses. Now, these are a little bit more specific. With Benoit Denis, he's a good wrestler. Very strong, very powerful guy, has pretty good technique, is really good at controlling the fight once the fight enters the clinch or when it goes to the ground. But he gets kneed a lot. I don't know what it is about his entries. Well, I mean, I do know what it is about his entries, but I don't know why he chooses to enter like that. They're very telegraphed. And he doesn't really change levels every time. Sometimes he kind of just bends over and tries to get a hold of the opponent, which works for him. I mean, it just seems like he needs to be able to get a hold of his opponent and he's able to work something off of that. But I've seen him get kneed a lot. I've seen him get kneed, I think, in almost every single fight of his last 5 fights. He got kneed shooting a takedown. A guy like Dustin Poirier, a seasoned vet, they're going to be able to make reads on the fly like that. And if you're a guy that's kind of telegraphing your takedown, that isn't using a combination or something, or footwork or head movement to hide the takedown, to mask it, and you're making it all too obvious where your head is going to be during the takedown, then someone like Poirier is going to capitalize on that. So that's a concern for Benoit Denis. Definitely a hole in his game that I've noticed. Another one is his boxing, specifically head movement. Head movement, slipping punches. He can stay out of the way as far as getting outside of range, which is good, that he's able to read that, stay outside range, and then come in and, not be there to get hit. It's not as if the guy just walks forward and gets hit. But once he's engaging in the fight, when he's throwing down with his opponent, not really trying to move his head, not really trying to create angles. He's not trying to slip punches and counter. The guy is just trying to destroy his opponent in the exchanges, in the heat of exchanges. That's one thing I've noticed. about Benoit Saint-Denis in many of his fights. Specifically, the fight with Thiago Moises. There were a lot of times where he was throwing punches or elbows at Thiago because he was just throwing punches to hurt his opponent, but not thinking about position, not thinking about the counter of what's coming back. There were times where he was just getting hit. He was taking unnecessary shots. Again, this is in my opinion. I think if he would have calculated them more, maybe picked his shots a little better, didn't try to rush in so much, and wasn't always so eager to try to get the finish, I think he'd have a lot of success, honestly. He's a big dude. He's got a big frame, big reach for the division. I think it would be beneficial if he just took his time a little bit more, stayed on the outside a little bit, maybe used the jab a little bit, maybe worked on a check left hook. So not everything's perfect in the game of Benoit Saint-Denis. While he is on a 5-fight win streak tear in the division and has absolutely been raining hell on his opponents, finishing Matt Frevola via head kick in the first round, blitzes Gabriel Miranda after an early brawl, going tit for tat with Ismail Bonfim, only for Benoit Saint-Denis to show that he's a superior wrestler and ragdoll him all over the octagon, and to get the neck crank finish. The guy is an absolute force, but he's going up against the Diamond. It's going to be pretty damn hard to beat Dustin Poirier because this guy's resume speaks for itself. Guy's fought Michael Johnson, Eddie Alvarez, Justin Gaethje twice, Conor McGregor 3 times, Charles Oliveira, Michael Chandler, the who's who of the lightweight division. Dustin Poirier has fought them. He's absolutely destroyed some of the elite competition. And then there's times where he's had wars, where he's had to really dig deep and bring out the dog to win. Definitely not going to be easy to finish my man, Dustin Poirier. But if we're looking at his last performances, I can understand the concern that some fans may have, such as the head kick KO loss to Justin Gaethje. I don't look too hard into this head kick KO loss for Dustin Poirier. He's been KO'd before, and he's come back only to win after getting brutally KO'd. So it's not something that I'm really going to hold against him too much because it's happened to him in the past. Again, that aggressiveness and that willingness to engage, I think that played a part in why Dustin Poirier ate the head kick and only put up one hand to block it. He was thinking about hitting the mark. He was frustrated because Justin Gaethje is also an elite level fighter and has improved his game a lot. So I'm not going to look into that too much against Dustin Poirier. He fought one of the best lightweights in the world, got KO'd. It happens. It absolutely happens. In his fight before that, I thought it was a valiant effort against Michael Chandler. Michael Chandler put it on Dustin Poirier in that first round, and Poirier was very defensively sound, made sure to cover up for most of the shots or rolled with him, backed up, didn't let Chandler get him with any of those hooks. Very, very good defense by Dustin Poirier. And then he ended up finishing the round by beating the face off of Michael Chandler. Broke his nose, busted his nose. I don't know if he broke it, but he busted that damn thing. And then he elbowed him, that vicious elbow right at the bell. Just icing on the cake. Then Michael Chandler comes out and tries to smash this man into oblivion. Pretty much does. I mean, to be honest. I mean, Poirier didn't really get beat up too much. You know, he was fighting a lot, moving a lot, making it really hard for Chandler to kind of get a super advantageous position so he could really rain vicious ground and pound on Dustin Poirier. But he was still getting beat on by Michael Chandler and still had to survive and still had to have the grit and wherewithal to think about, okay, this is what I'm going to do in the next round. And then lo and behold, the next round, gassed Michael Chandler, which you know that Dustin Poirier's corner and Dustin Poirier himself had planned on that and knew that they were going to be able to capitalize off of that going into the third round because he was absolutely gassed, and Dustin Poirier, while not probably 100%, definitely had a lot more energy. And then he was able to reverse the position on Michael Chandler and got that beautiful rear naked choke. And that's one thing I want to say about Dustin Poirier. Even though, you know, he's a guy that's been in many, many wars and had many, many fights, and there's a lot of tape on him, he's a guy that continues to surprise. And you can never say that you have everything in Dustin Poirier's game pinned. Now, you could technically say that about any fighter, but Dustin Poirier, he's the kind of guy to come up with something, to change a game plan, to win a fight in the fight. And I think that's a huge asset. But Dustin Poirier isn't perfect either. While he is really good at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, some of the elite Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu guys have been able to pretty much nullify his entire Jiu-Jitsu game. And we've seen the grappling master Khabib Nurmagomedov and his Sambo absolutely cancel out Dustin Poirier as well. Now Dustin Poirier had a beautiful guillotine choke on Khabib, but he wasn't able to out-grapple Khabib in any type of positional grappling. He was able to find that submission and then work it quickly. It's not like he found the position to get there. It was off of Khabib's takedown, and it was more or less something Khabib went into. And I've alluded to the Chandler fight where Chandler was able to take him down and pretty much hold him down. Dustin Poirier was able to reverse eventually, but it was because Chandler was so fatigued, not because Dustin Poirier was the better grappler. So neither guy is perfect. Both are susceptible to getting chinned. Even though Benoit Saint-Denis hasn't been chinned per se, it's definitely something can happen given his style and given his mentality in the octagon. And same can be said for Dustin Poirier. We've seen him chin before, and we know he's all too eager to get into firefights. But he is gritty, so if you don't knock the dude out, he's probably not going anywhere for 25 minutes. Saint-Denis is an accomplished wrestler, and he's a very big, strong, powerful dude. He's the younger guy. He's on the up-and-coming swing. He's coming for Dustin Poirier. He wants that belt. He wants to be recognized as the best lightweight in the world. But Dustin Poirier still thinks that he's got something to prove. He still feels he's that guy. Or at least, he's going to damn sure find out if he's that guy. I think this is going to be a really good match, guys. I know it's really easy to paint the narrative that Dustin Poirier is an older, washed fighter, and that Benoit Saint-Denis is just going to blow through him because he's the younger, stronger, hungrier guy. But there's something to be said about the veterans that still want to prove that they're masters of their crafts, to still prove that they can run with the younger guys like they did when they were younger and when they were hungry. It's a really hard decision. It's a really hard decision to make a prediction here because I can see this fight playing out in so many different ways. But I honestly see this fight starting out pretty back and forth. I see it starting out pretty back and forth. I can see Benoit going for some takedowns early on and having some success, maybe even able to hold Poirier down, get some ground and pound on. But I think Poirier is going to fight to get back up. I think there's been too many times where he's been held to the ground, and I think in this fight he's really going to try to fight. I don't think it's going to be easy to hold Poirier down. And I think he is going to throw some defensive jiu-jitsu out there to sort of give Benoit something to think about when he goes for the takedown or when they are in those grappling wrestling exchanges. I can see Benoit getting a little tired in this fight because Poirier is a hard guy to put away. And he's a guy that puts the pressure on you the whole time, which is something that Benoit constantly does. I've seen Benoit Saint-Denis get tired before. I've seen him absolutely exhausted and losing exchanges. This was against a much bigger opponent, Zaleski dos Santos. Sorry if I butchered that name. But that guy was a bit bigger, and I think the fight was on short notice. However, it is something that I noticed, and it is something that can happen. He can get outboxed. Dustin Poirier is not a small lightweight by any means. He's not the biggest, but he's not small by any means either. And I can see Benoit getting tired before Dustin Poirier because I don't think this fight is going to end early. I think it's going to end later, possibly in the 4th or 5th round. But I do see it being by TKO finish, and I do see Dustin Poirier getting his hand raised. I think the sequence is going to come in the middle of a firefight. You know, both guys are throwing heat at each other, trying to finish each other. It's been an absolute grueling war. Both are trying to make the other one quit, but Dustin Poirier just has a little bit more dog in him, and Benoit's just a little tired. This is a hard fight for him. It's been a huge test. He's had a lot of success early in the fight, but Dustin Poirier has been starting to slowly take the fight away from him, and that fatigue is starting to set in. And now Dustin Poirier can sense the tides turning, and I think he really starts to pressure Benoit Denis. I think he's starting to get the better of these exchanges that they're having. I think he gets him up against the cage, and I think Benoit, being the warrior that he is, tries to go out on a shield. I think he throws some heat at Dustin Poirier and overthrows, and Dustin Poirier counters. And I think he counters him. I think he counters him with a beautiful, beautiful hook. Stumbles Benoit Denis. Dustin Poirier follows up with multiple punches. Benoit Denis crumbles to the canvas. Dustin Poirier follows him with punches. Referee steps in, calls the bout. TKO victory for Dustin Poirier. Because at the end of the day, I got to make a prediction. And I'm riding with my boy Dustin. Do you guys agree? Or do you disagree? Do you think Benoit Denis is going to be too much for the very seasoned Dustin Poirier? Let me know down in the comments below. But if you liked the video, give it a like. If you like the channel, if you like this kind of content, maybe subscribe. It's all going to be UFC related, mostly focusing on main cards or main card matchups. I do have a full-time job, but if it ever takes off or if it ever grows, I would definitely love to put more time and effort into the channel. Hope you guys have a great day, and I'll talk to you later. Peace.